Hello gamers, it's me Josh from the MTG Homebrew Network, and I'm coming to you with another deck tech video. Today we're going to be getting some green monsters into play. That's what we're doing. It's going to be really cool. It's a really simple green stompy X spells deck. Kind of like a Hydra deck, but not everything is a Hydra. Our commander is Kurbis, the Harvest Celebrant. Our commander is Kurbis, the Harvest Celebrant, or should I call him Kurvis? Because the whole point of having him in the command zone is just to have a creature that you can always cast on curve. Kurbis he enters with power and toughness with +1/+1 counters equal to the amount of mana spent to cast him. That factors in just if the X is 0, he'll be a 2/2 for the green. That also factors in commander tax. So if he dies for some reason and you have to pay 4 mana for him, he'll be a 4/4 when you cast him for 4. This essentially ensures that you'll always have a creature to cast on curve, which means that this deck is able to tempo out very quickly, especially with all of these X spell creatures that we see in here, and become very, very aggressive. If opponents don't have a lot of removal or creatures to block with, they're going to get overrun by all of our Hydras very, very quickly. This is also a +1/+1 counter deck. Kurbis, you can remove a counter to prevent damage to creatures that have counters on them, which makes blocking a gigantic pain in the butt, which means that we also have a lot of +1/+1 counter synergies in here. Creatures are pretty simple. We got Stone Coil Serpent, one of the best creatures in the format, in my opinion, and a bunch of other really sweet Hydras. The cool thing about Hydras and Tiny Leaders is they're always going to be the biggest thing. People generally don't have creatures that are going to be bigger than a 4/4, so if you could pay 5 mana and make a 5/5 Hydra, or 6 mana and make a 5/5 Hydra, depending on the cost of your Hydra, you can have the biggest creature on the board, and a lot of these creatures have trample, some of them have haste, some of them have other really, really good abilities too, like the Hormengaunt here, which comes back from the graveyard whenever you play a land, which we have a lot of. We're also on Rafellos and a few other mana generators here to generate just oodles of mana for our big creatures. And a lot of our creatures give us payoffs for the X being bigger, like Ravenous, for example, lets us draw a card when the X is 5, or Primordial Hydra gets trample when it has 10 or more counters on it. Cards like this more or less end the game 1 to 2 turns after you cast them. And that is the goal of this deck. Now, a lot of the creatures do die to removal in here, but we have so many of them, and also Kurbis himself, that eventually our opponents will run out of ways to kill our 5/5, 6/6, 7/7, 8/8 progressively bigger creatures, and we'll be able to completely overpower them with our Hydras. This deck also has a fair amount of removal. We have instant, like Tail Swipe. I said instance, but we have instant, just one, Tail Swipe. We also have things like Ulvenwald Tracker, Fight Bear, as I call it. Fun fact about Ulvenwald Tracker, they were too cowardly to print it for its actual creature type, but if you look, the human is in front holding up a sword. The bear is holding his arm, like saying go. Clearly the bear is the one telling the human to do the fighting. Just wanted to point that out. We have a ton of removal. Also our lands too. We have Boseiju, we have Blast Zone in here. The other thing that our lands do is they make a lot of mana. We have Nykthos, Evando, which is like the poor man's Gaia's Cradle, and the other thing that our lands do is they make a ton of mana. We have Nykthos and Evando, which both just tap for a bunch. We have quite a bit of utility in our lands between the Boseiju and the Okina, which is a really useful card. Okina's great with Kurbis because we can remove a counter from Kurbis and still keep him as a blocker and prevent the damage, and he won't die till end of turn as a state-based effect. So Okina's really helpful both as a combat trick for that and as a way of letting us squeeze more value out of our Kurbis. And then of course Shifting Woodland. If you're playing Mono Green and you're not playing Shifting Woodland, what are you doing? It's free graveyard recursion. Besides that, we have some enchantments that help us with our counter theme. We have Hardened Scales, of course. We have Hunter's Talent, which is some removal that also helps us get through with trample and helps us get some card advantage, which is huge. This card's really, really great for the late game. And then we have Innkeeper's Talent as well, which helps protect our counter creatures and provide more counters. And then the Ranger class, which is an extremely good card. It gets counters on our attacking creatures, allows us to cast the top of our library, and makes a 2/2 on curve. It's just a sweet, sweet card for tempo decks like this one. And that's basically the whole deck. Our sideboard exists more or less to help us not lose to combo decks. We have a lot of graveyard hate, we have a lot of artifact hate, we have things like Dosen, who could also be the commander of this deck if you want to pivot into that direction. Dosen, I've used him as a commander in the past. And just some things to stop combos from beating us up. I'm considering adding Dampening Sphere to the sideboard of this deck too, just because Dampening Sphere just says Storm decks aren't allowed to win the game, but it's an artifact, we have no way to tutor for it, so I'm not sure how I feel about it. I want to keep the removal to being creatures as much as possible. I'm not even sure how I feel about like Ghost Vacuum, which is just a good card in games that go long, even ignoring the fact that it's graveyard hate. And Ratchet Bomb too, I'm thinking about removing even these for more things that I can put into play with Finalia Devastation. But that is more or less the entire deck. I've had this deck for a while, and it's just a pile of X spells, removal, and cool creatures that you cast on curve. I am firmly in the pocket of Big Green. Thank you all so much for watching.